Thank you. Thank you. And it's lovely to be here. And by here, I actually mean at the meeting house for the Ethical Society. So we're still practicing and getting ready for in-person meetings. And if you look at there's one view that you can see all the empty chairs. But Matthew is here with me, and we are setting up the system so that we can kind of bring Zoom into the room here and bring the room into the Zoom meeting. So if you want to send me information about how that experience has been for you today, I'd be very happy to get that. So there are a number of qualities about the word affirmation that I find very appealing. Feels good to say the word and conveys like a democratic sense. It feels more bottom up than top down. And it doesn't connote the rigidity and finality of an oath, let's say. And it's relational. It's deeply connected to the situation and to the people involved with the situation. And so I'd like to mention 3 experiences with affirmation connected with this ethical society that I've had over the years. And the first goes way back with my predecessor, Walter Lawton. Walter was the leader here in 1985 when I first started coming here, and actually was the leader who married Ruth Ann and I, and did the naming ceremony for my son Jeff, and also did the certification ceremony for me and Susan Rose and Kurt Collier in New York City in 1998. Anyway, at that meeting, he shared his latest version of what he called his brief affirmation. And so I'm going to share that with you. It's an exciting world, and I feel okay. Sometimes it's a very tough world, but I retain hope. I recognize that there are floods of resources available to help me if I but look around. I intend to reach my goals with a greater joy to myself and others. Whatever cosmic reality may be, I am thankful to the universe for the energy which sustains my chosen lifestyle and allows me the full experience of love, which is my birthright. I'm committed to a quest for a healthier and more equitable society and to a better understanding and practice of personal and social motivation and achievement. If I have failed others, I ask their forgiveness. If others have failed me, I extend them my forgiveness. I sincerely believe that I have intelligence, the imagination, the capability, and the perseverance to do the things which I must do, to do them well, and to do them with attention to the happiness and fulfillment of others, as well as myself. And Walter certainly was a dear man and really was a leader for a number of ethical societies prior to his passing, and is certainly firmly in my mind as somebody who had a very affirming nature as well as his own affirmation for himself. So the second one had to do with an experience I had soon after becoming the leader for the Ethical Culture Society of Westchester. I was called for jury duty. And I was there at the federal courthouse, and I got picked for a panel. And when it was time to be interviewed, I said, you should know that I don't do oaths. And so they allowed me to do an affirmation. And an affirmation, I actually looked it up, is to testify or declare by affirmation as distinguished from swearing an oath. What I was concerned about is that I was going to ask me like put a hand on the Bible or something like that, or to say something like, so help me God. Either way, I was not interested in that. And quite frankly, I didn't like the idea of an oath anyway. I would certainly promise to be as truthful as I possibly could. And I was happy to have that opportunity to give an affirmation as opposed to giving an oath. And then I later had an experience because the Ethical Society was getting involved with some of the efforts to have more fair and affordable housing here in the county. And people in the Westchester Society will have heard over and over again about the experience the county had getting sued for having lots of housing projects that were funded by the feds that were not fair. That is, they were almost all put into places that were not racially integrated. And so rather than help reduce the level of segregation in the county, they are actually increasing the level of segregation. And so they got sued, and there's a consent decree that they're still, I guess it's recently managed to work off. Anyway, in relation to all that, and in my study of things that were applied to that situation, I came upon what was called AFFH. And this is part of the Fair Housing Act from 1968. And those letters stand for fair and affirmative, now if I can just say it, affirmatively furthering fair housing. I find affirmative and affirmatively different because affirmatively is very hard to say. Anyway, so here's what the statement about that part of the act. In 1968, when it passed the Fair Housing Act, Congress made a promise to the American people that it would end discrimination in housing based on race, national origin, and certain other characteristics, and that it would eliminate racial segregation, which government itself had done so much to create and sustain, and undo the lasting harms it caused. Congress gave HUD the job of carrying out this promise. It made HUD responsible for protecting the rights of individuals seeking homes. It also told HUD to make sure that cities, counties, and states it funds do not discriminate, and that they take active steps to tackle segregation. This important protection is known as Affirmatively Furthering Fair Housing, AFFH. HUD failed to do this job until 2015, when it adopted the first effective AFF regulation. Let's remember that the act was passed in 1968. So we had a good long time where there was regulations out there that were just really not being applied. And in 2016, I believe it was, the president at the time basically rescinded all that and tried to put another rule in place that basically said, don't worry, it's all local control and just go for it. So, which, by the way, I think is getting undone again now. The main thing is these three affirmation experiences were ones that kind of reminded me how much I connect affirmation with ethical culture and ethical humanism, and how there is this sense of when you're affirming, you're trying to do something positive, you're engaging, and you're making promises, basically, to try to bring good things to life. So I wound up looking up the etymology for the word affirm. And yeah, I didn't realize until I was reading this that the second half of this word is firm. Go figure, right? This really borrowed from the Latin affirmare. I'm sorry for bungling all the Latin pronunciation. But anyway, it goes back to that word, which means to strengthen, confirm, assert positively, to strengthen, to fortify. And it's a derivative of firmus, strong, durable, firm. There's a strength about affirmation, but a strength that is kind of flexible too, right? It's firm, it's not fixed. It has some flexibility and capacity for alteration when it's necessary. And again, it's kind of a democratic thing. There's an agreeing about it quality for affirmation that I don't find when you're signing oaths and things like that, which seem to come from the outside. And affirmation is a term that's low on judgmentalism. Right? It's not like it's coming at you full force. it has this sense of this is where I stand and I'm good with it. I'm firm with it. Not that it's something that is carved in stone per se. So with that being said, you might think that the best thing to do is to affirm everyone and everything, right? There's all these positives here. There is, though, the capacity for downsides for heavy use of affirmation. And it actually came up in the conversation after the breakout rooms today when somebody said, you know, I want to be affirmed for things that are meaningful to me, right? And it reminded me of a Doonesbury cartoon, actually from 1994. And I thought about showing it to you, but I didn't really get the slide set up, but I can read it to you. It's not that long. And I'm going to read it from the panel 3 going forward. So the child comes home from camp and the mom says, wow, honey, you won all these at camp. And what you see here is this kid with a whole collection of trophies laid out before him. And so he picks up one of them and says, I got this one for showing up at camp on the right day. And I got this one for finishing a lanyard. The cup I was awarded for remembering my computer password. And this one I got for not missing too many archery practices. Mom says, well, you must be very proud, Jeff. And Jeff throws the trophy behind him, says, yeah, right, Mom. And the last panel is Mom saying, who knew it was a self-esteem camp? And Dad saying, we gotta read the brochures more carefully. There is a downside to being too cavalier with our affirmations. But it really goes a bit beyond that, right? Because for one thing, affirmations are intended often to kind of help people feel like they fit into the current situation, right? In other words, if you're affirming someone who's cooked you a great dinner, that's really just kind of being part of the meal, right? And part of the pleasure of being together and all those. Oftentimes, it's really promoting staying within bounds, right? As opposed to transforming and pushing outside of that. And they tend to like confirm what we think about ourselves rather than challenge what we think about ourselves. But it really doesn't have to be that way. And in recent years, there's been a lot of work done for cognitive therapy, I think has been big with this, where they teach people to have affirmative thoughts about themselves and what's ahead of them, what they can do, and those sorts of things. Basically, it's talking through your experience and trying to dampen down negative thoughts and highlight and strengthen your positive thoughts about yourself and your experiences and other people and all those sorts of things. And that sounds great. The thing is, when some researchers started studying this, they were finding that there were some unexpected results. So this is positive self-statements, power for some, peril for others. A study done by Joanne B. Wood, W.Q. Elaine Perunovic, and John W. Lee. And I think it was in 2011. And here it is. Here's just part of the abstract. Positive self-statements are widely believed to boost mood and self-esteem, yet their effectiveness has not been demonstrated. We examine the contrary prediction that positive self-statements can be ineffective or even harmful. A study confirmed that people often use positive self-statements and believe them to be effective. 2 experiences showed that among participants with low self-esteem, those who repeated a positive self-statement, I am a lovable person, or who focused on how that statement was true, felt worse than those who did not repeat the statement, or who focused on how it was both true and not true. Among participants with high self-esteem, those who repeated the statement or focused on how it was true felt better than those who did not, but to a limited degree. Repeating positive self-statements may benefit certain people, but backfire for the very people who need them the most. So there is this quality that we have, a self-image that we carry that is pretty stable. And when we try to affect that image by giving ourselves affirmations, or when other people try to affirm things about us, it's not always that easy to move away from that. So if you already feel really great about yourself, that's just confirming that, and you feel great about it. If you are less likely to be feeling great about yourself, those sorts of things not only can ring true, but they can trigger another self-reflective quality of, people really don't understand me. People are blind to my disabilities or my problems, et cetera, and wind up, rather than lifting someone, actually kind of suppress them a little bit. Now, I happen to have some personal experience with this. My mother was someone who actually had that kind of negative aspect to life for many years of her existence. And I can remember her being very protective of any time when I would show signs of thinking myself like better than somebody else. That really got her upset. Or even when I did things that looked like they were reaching a bit and might be putting me at risk for some kind of disappointment, she'd be quick to kind of alert me to how painful it can be to be disappointed about things. And oftentimes she tended to be just very conservative about what she thought we should reach for. And I remember when I got into college, actually when I got into graduate school, college, and one of the things that she said to me when I was getting ready for graduation was, neither your father or I were able to finish college. And your sister and you did that, but now you are finishing graduate school. We never thought this could happen within our family, right? The expectation was low, and that had a protective quality for her. The thing is, what made her life better was later in life, after my father had retired, and they were living in Florida for half of the year. Florida, of all things. Anyway, living in a trailer park in Florida, and had the best years of their life together. They were in this small community on the eastern side of the state, and they had lots of friends. There was the same people returning to this place over and over again. In fact, they wound up getting what they called a park model, so that they would have a permanent place within this trailer park community. And my mother took up art. There was somebody who was coming in teaching how to do pencil drawings, colored pencil drawings, and she found herself good at it. She joined the Red Hat Society, I think they're called, or something like that, and people were really appreciating her contributions to them, her organizing events and things along those lines. And she was blossoming in her last years. It was so good to see. And what it took was probably a more gradual collection of affirmations and a gradual sense of kind of moving in to a new setting with new people doing new things. I think this is a story that is good for us to be thinking about in an ethical society. We actually are also pretty comfortable with the familiar, right? Here we are on a Sunday morning for a platform meeting, and it's you have a old white guy giving you an address. So there's a quality about that, I think, that is comforting and reassuring, and a feeling of we're connecting to our traditions, and we're kind of grooving on our quality of enjoying each other's company, that sort of thing, and which is absolutely lovely. I think transformation, however, will be taking a bit more out of us than that, right? In other words, finding more ways to affirm what's outside of our normal experience and what is reaching for more things is something that would be really good for us to pursue, something that would be helpful for our community and for the future of ourselves together. Because one of the things that you find when you are kind of recognizing the comfort and the familiar is that it's harder to break in to that place. Right? So what I'm really recommending is that we spend a bit more time trying to figure out how can we move in new directions? How can we support each other, trying new and different things? And how can we bring a perspective that we have towards affirmation of life, of activity, of people? How can we bring that outside of our walls and into the larger world around us? Because it's really our engagement outside of our community that will hold the best opportunities for us to be affirming a transformative quality about ourselves and for us to be recognizing the capacity for transformation in the world around us. So I'd like to close with this. Ethical humanism is about the art of possibilities for ethical living. It's essentially progressive in the sense of moving forward in a positive direction, and it's transformative with the goal of achieving an ever more equitable and compassionate society. Affirmation can be an essential tool for ethical growth when wielded effectively. And as we develop our capacities to affirm the goodness in others and in ourselves, we can help our ethical societies, our communities, and the greater society around us edge toward the ethical world we envision. So let us affirm each other's best. Let's put out our best selves forward as we make our way in the weeks, months, years, and decades ahead.